Anyone can see? Oh, okay, yeah, we are live now. All right, so let's kick start. So welcome everyone. We are so glad to have all of you here. Our topic for today is students' mental health during pandemic. Now, the question that is on our mind, how do we stay sane, especially as students during this COVID-19 crisis? Now, remote learning and social distancing has drastically reduced the quality of life of millions of children and teenagers, and students, as we know, have been prone to stress, depression, and various types of anxieties. The usual day-to-day activities of peer group assignments, social activities, planning for events are, you can say no more, and no one can tell for sure when we will go back to this norm. So instead of fighting this battle, what if we have the right knowledge and tools to cope with this problem? Finally, today, we will look at how the pandemic is affecting the mental health of students. EWRF, in collaboration with Segi University, is delighted to bring you this session. So without further ado, let's get to know our guest panelists for today. We have Mr. Tony Ng Wei Kang. He is the Assistant Manager of Outreach and Marketing from Segi College Penang campus. And next, we have Mr. Sivan Koran. He is a licensed counselor, a certified practitioner, registered with the Malaysian Counsellors Board since 2006, which probably leads to more than 15 years of experience. He has extensive experience helping people with their problems, especially psychological problems. He is also a certified psychology test practitioner, a laughter yoga leader, and a licensed Leonard Personality Inventory LPI trainer. And currently, Mr. Sivan is working as a psychology lecturer at University Tunku Abdul Rahman. And we have Mr. Bala Subramaniam. He is our registered counselor. He is also a counselor at psychotherapies at Eve Caring Center and the Mind faculty. He has over 30 years of experience dealing with people from all ages and all walks of life, especially with emotional issues. And he is also an active social worker. And finally, we have a student who is currently studying Bachelor of Arts in Business, Marketing and Management, Henry. All right, so we have an awesome lineup of panelists, and I'm so excited to have all of you here. Welcome to our webinar. All right, so let's kick off by understanding why this topic is a serious issue. So let's start off with Mr. Sivan. Are you able to share with us what are the current Malaysian statistics of people who are affected by mental health?
Okay, very interesting question, I would say that. But very unfortunate, we don't have any latest statistics on the mental health, but we have like 2 years back statistics now. And the statistics released by Malaysian Health Ministry under the National Health and Morbidity Survey, they're saying that 1 in 3 Malaysians have some kind of mental health issues, and its prevalence high among people at 16 to 19 years old or 20 years old. They consist the majority of this number. That is 1 in 3. And another statistics that I can relate here is University Malaya Medical Center, University Malaya Medical, they call it UMSC, University Malaya Specialist Center. Few years ago, they predicted that in the year 2020s, mental health going to become the second highest health problem in Malaysia after heart disease. So I think we are already reaching that status. And another statistic related by Relate Malaysian Health Institute and IDS Idea Center for Institute of Democracy and Economic Affairs in Malaysia. They're saying that especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, due to the lockdown and other social distancing and other MCO issues imposed on Malaysians, and especially, of course, on the children, students and all, the surge in job losses and mainly the social distancing has caused highest level of distress among Malaysians. And this distress has led to suicidal and for what you call deteriorating mental health. And another thing that I can relate here is like I even checked up with Befrienders, and according to Befrienders, actually Befrienders having a very good statistic, but what they said is in July, August, and September last year, the number of suicidal cases and depression cases, especially based on the cases, the calls that they have received, it is like significantly increased compared to the same year. I mean, that is 2020, that is April, May, and June. Yeah, so this is an alarming level we are going on. And my own statistics, I'm in a depression support group. I'm as a counselor in depression support group. What is a WhatsApp group and a Facebook group. And I can see the number of people are complaining about their mental health, and then the kind of a medicine they're taking, and then the information they're sharing is like, previously I can say that a year ago, before the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, like maybe in 2018 or 19, early 19 or 19, can see that the number of cases they're sharing is very limited. I mean, only few people will be sharing their cases or the issues, the complaints and all kind of things. Now it's uncountables. Many people. And then out of many, the many of them are sharing about the intention for suicidal and all kind of things. And then they are deteriorating mental health too. So based on all these things, I would say that it is quite alarming level now. Yeah.
That is definitely a worrying statistics, Mr. Sivan,
Mhm.
right? And the age group that you quoted as well, of course, directly relates to our student groups,
Exactly.
right? Especially when it comes to suicidal intentions.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that this is a genetic factor, or is this environmental factor that contributes to mental health problems in students?
Okay. Since I'm not expert in the medical field, but anyway, I'm getting some information from National Institute for Mental Health, is US-based institution. According to them, what you call mental illness or mental health is not a trait, unlike like heredity diseases like diabetic or something is passed on from parents to the children. But some genes mean genetics, some genes which are going to be passed on from parents to children probably may activate the mental illness, may activate. Chances for the genes to activate mental illness are there. As such, people are very vulnerable. Maybe easily can get the issues. People are vulnerable here. Whenever I'm telling people are vulnerable here, again, I'm relating to the environment. So the gene can work well if the environment is not well for the particular person who may develop a mental illness or mental health issues. Yeah. So according to the same National Institute of Mental Health, 30% of the cases are related to genetics and 70% because of the environment. Yeah. So whenever we are talking about environment, I think nowadays the environment is the serious or something challenging environment is the COVID-19 pandemic environment. We are living in a lockdown. We cannot see friends. We cannot go and visit our family members. Or most importantly, since the topic is our participants, our students cannot see their fellow friends. And previously for the group activity in all, they can meet their peers, the classmates and all, doing group activity. After they're done with the group activity, they can go for a so-called yamcha, or the other popular word is mama, and then they'll hang around in the mama or the so-called yamcha until midnight. So all these things, part and parcel of their life. So like half of their life is already cut down. So it's like, like chopping off our fingers from our body or something like that. It is something like that for them. So that's the reason why the environmental factors is going to become a greater factor, I would say, in this, especially in this current pandemic time.
Right, right. Absolutely, right. That's the reason why we are also discussing, and we have a student's perspective later on who will be sharing more, right? So,
Yes.
Mr. Sivan, just to conclude what you said, right? If it's an environmental factor, means that we can do something about it, right? Rather than it's a genetic factor.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So follow-up question. I have a question for Mr. Bala. Right.
Right.
What are the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on mental health, especially on students?
Yeah, I mean, there are many effects. Okay. Let's go on with, you see that there's a sudden change of, the medium of education, and the students are not able to adapt to this. So they call that adaptability struggle. Now the abrupt transition, switching from classroom to e-learning, just understand, like, from standard 1 to standard 6 is classroom experience, and then from form 1 to form 5 classroom experience, and then your form 6 or the other one, basic, just before you go to college, is all classroom setting. Suddenly you change into e-learning. There's a complete change, and the students are not prepared for this. Although they're good in computers, but e-learning itself, they are not prepared for it. Actually, they're struggling with this. Now, and they're thrown into it like you're just thrown into a sea, ask you to swim, you swim, you survive. So that's how they feel. So all this is going to be difficult for them to make changes and to move forward, and makes learning a little bit more difficult. Now, they struggle with little skills to deal with this learning. There was no something formatted to teach them how to get used to this learning system. So they have to learn by themselves, and it was there was no time even for the education system to prepare the students. Neither can they had enough time to prepare the lecturers. I think Mr. Koren will agree with me. Not enough time to prepare them to execute this process of teaching. So everybody is struggling, just trying to make things like make ends meet. Okay, I throw this, you just go through it, and you come out through it, because they have to do college education system, so they have to finish it somehow. Now, not only they struggle with this, but they struggle with it alone, which means they don't have their friends beside them, they don't have the seniors, don't have the lecturers in face-to-face where to help them. It's all on e-learning. So they struggle this fight by themselves, which is going to be very feeling like loneliness. This is another part of loneliness. As you know, previously, students are actually one group that they experience a lot of stress and anxiety. Throwing into this kind of situation, it adds on to this anxiety and stress, makes it worse. Now, last time in the classroom setting, the students were free to ask questions, and they can ask questions because another thing is that the lecturers are able to see from faces of the students to know whether the students understand the class or what is going wrong, and they can instantly respond to the situation. Now, the lecturers have to look into a screen, which is tiny stuff, and they can't really identify if they have a problem in the classroom, in the media of teaching, whether students understand or not. Of course, you can say, they can send in, through the chat, but it's going to be not as easy as it was in an open classroom setting. Now, all this affects the communication between lecturers and students, which is not an easy flow. So, this improper communication system or not effective actually makes the students feel lonely and experience high level of anxiety and stress. Now, the other one is, as Mr. Sivan was saying, that not having enough social support, you don't go for tetare, you don't have to join the group, no extracurricular activities, no organization, no hobbies. All these actually what it does that it makes them feel lonely, and this gets them into getting into high risk of getting into some form of mental illness. They also feel bored because they're doing the same thing again, look into the screen. How often, how long can you look into the screen and learn and just screen alone? Huh? Whereas last time it was classroom setting, you can go back into the screen, go back into classrooms. So that it causes a lot of boringness in the day-to-day learning process. Now, we should have seen many students last time going to the university library to go through the books and all, and they like the private, quiet place to study. Now, imagine all the students going back home in their house. They're going to struggle studying. Not only struggle, but also they have to face the responsibilities of the family. And not only that, some of them will be in the middle of domestic violence. So all this is really affecting their ability to study peacefully. Now, this makes e-learning a little bit more stressful. Now, apart from this, there are these technical issues that affect the students. Huh? Many students have experienced technical problems while e-learning, which means their Wi-Fi can go off, connected well, and the gadgets can be not working, and sometimes they have difficulty in connecting with the lecturers, and they can't get in touch. Again, the lecturers are overloaded, so if lecturers cannot be connecting with so many students at the same time. So all these problems actually makes learning a little bit more difficult for these students. Now, what about practical classes? I think all of us know some classes are best learned in a practical hands-on learning, or especially lab work or using tools. Now, which is not possible in e-learning. So the lecturers have to make do with the e-learning to teach these students, which is not going to be very effective in that sense. Now, the other factor I think I would like to talk about is, as you know, students, they have problem with time management, which means they have got a schedule, still they have got a problem with time management. Now, without having any schedule, like classes at this time, you have to go in and come out, you have to finish all that. That was last time. Now, not in classes, but in the house, they will really face a problem with time management, with so much of online work to do. And this is going to cause them a lot of stress. And they find it difficult to complete their work on time, and it's not motivating for them. Now, apart from this, emotional issues. Like many others, students also have the fear of death of their family members, their friends, their loved ones to COVID-19. Now, apart from the parents, family dying, they also fear of many of the parents may not have enough earning capacity during this pandemic, or could have lost a job. So, and this can also cause them a fear of how are they going to continue their education without the finance from parents. So all these will increase this anxiety. Now, among all these, I think one of the most important problems the students and others face will be uncertainty. I think Mr. Sylvan will agree with me. A lot of uncertainty. What am I going to do? How am I going to deal with this? Now, there's no clear roadmap to what's going on in the future now. It's a continuous, is the continuation of the studies going on? Is the college going to reopen? When is it going to reopen? What is going to happen then? Is it going to be e-learning, or is it going to be classroom setting? Now, how are the exams going to be? I think now you have open book, and through internet, you e-learning, you do exams. Is it going to be effective? Now, how am I going to be graded? Are these grades going to be effectively helping me in my grades? So all these uncertainties are really making the students grow a little bit more uncomfortable. Apart from this, now whatever I have studied, how is it going to be employable? Now, the business, the hotel business, the airline business, the tour business, restaurant business, all closing down. What about the students who have done culinary arts? What about the students who have done hotel management? how are they going to look in future and say, what's going to happen to me if I come out from this? Can I get a job? Do I need to change the course? So there's so much of uncertainty. Actually, it's a very daunting feeling which can lead them to hopeless feeling. Now, it's very sad. The other concern will be excessive screen time. Now, e-learning leads to excessive screen time, especially students will go late night, using to finish the work. I mean, this is quite common. Now, if it is excessively being done, this will affect their sleep pattern, and affecting sleep pattern will affect their behavior and cognitive functioning, which will interfere in their learning. Now, going through this very stressful, anxiety-provoking situation can create a constant fear of loss of control. Everybody wants some amount of control, right, to deal with certain things. But you cannot have a good road map, don't know where you're going to go, don't have a control in life, which in turn will affect your confidence. And some even feel worthless because what's going to happen to me? I don't know. I'm useless now. So, and all this makes them vulnerable to develop mental illness like depression, suicide, and even substance abuse. All right. I hope I've covered most of the areas.
No, you've actually touched on very, very important points, Mr. Bala. So not only that the students have experiencing educational issues with classrooms or technical difficulties, but what we probably don't realize is that the fact they go home and they also have to face their family issues, right? And that is a different stress of a totally different stress altogether, right? So what would you say, right, are the symptoms that we should look out for? Because now that we've known so many effects that these students are facing, right? What are the symptoms that we can pay attention to, right? That triggers that we can actually take more attention, and so that we can actually do something about it.
If you look for some depressive kind of symptoms in them, that they will only they will not be showing motivation. You can't see them not moving in the right manner, which means like they'll be down, they're not focusing on their study, not focusing in education, they'll be by themselves. All this can be a signal, like something is not working right for them. And also, if we need some of them, we need to also think about, are they going into some kind of like substance abuse? A lot of smoking. No, smoking, the thing is going to be cool. It kind of relax. I think, Henry, you will agree with me, right? Smoking is kind of relaxing. So too much of smoking can be also a symptom, which means I'm depressed. I'm very stressful. So look out for signs they express very stressful moments. So this will be a clear-cut sign.
Right. And also just to add on, a follow-up question on your earlier point, right? These were the anxieties that they feel when they complete their studies, for example, and they don't even know if they were, how's the job market looks like. Yeah. Right. So how will this affect their adulthood? I mean, is there anything that we should take note of?
Sure. I think all these uncertainties that comes up, I think number one, the closest they can reach out is to their counselors in the various colleges and universities. So they will be able to help out, to do that. Now, if they still cannot, if there is someone in the family who's able to help them, that'd be very good, really, someone very close. Or otherwise, I think some of the NGOs, like quite a number of NGOs like EWRF, a few groups, they are out there looking out for people who can help them out and teach them how to deal with these coping mechanisms, to deal with their stressful moments. Yeah, I think they can do that.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Mr. Bala. Okay, now I think we want to hear from Henry, right? As a student, right? What other experiences and challenges have you gone through during this pandemic?
For most of the part, actually, Mr. Bala have mentioned already. So thank you so much, sir, for speaking on behalf of students. So other than that, there are loads of issues that students have been facing. And namely, one of the most common issues that I've been facing is, first of all, the college fees issues, because even though the classes are being taken online, but the fees amount is still remain same, just like how it's been conducted on physical class. Whereas we are using our own internet connection, and we are using our own premise or at house. But however, the fees is still quite similar, which is quite distressing for lots of the students, especially for students that are paying fee themselves. And which brings to my next point, for the part-time students who are actually studying for part-time and working as a full-time, like myself. So we are having a struggle to find a full-time job because, as everyone knows, the pandemic, it's giving trouble for most of us, even for those experienced, like for our parents. Some of the parents are getting retrenched, even like for me personally. My father was retrenched, but then currently he's been equipped with a job as well. So fortunately, but some of the parents are still being retrenched and they're still figuring out how they would like to cope up, how they would like to pay the fees. And for the students, they have to figure out how are they going to settle their PTPTN loan if they don't have a job after the pandemic. Even though the students are having an internship program during their education, but some of the internship places do not pay any type of allowance or salary. So with such type of treatment, how do students actually able to cope up with the situations? And just like Mr. Bala mentioned before, some of the students might they could be married as well, and they would be facing domestic violence, so they have to cope up with such issues. Whereas other than that, there are also students that are mentioned which became viral in Malaysia, to be specific, at Kampung Tembak near Kuala Katil. There are numerous students are having internet connection issues, and they had to climb up of a coconut tree to get a proper Wi-Fi connection. And those are actually 17 years old student, and they are feeling demotivated because of such issues. And ironically, it happened even though after the government give us a free Wi-Fi connections for the students, but these issues is still going on, which is heart-wrenching for the students like us. And I would say some of the students are also that are less fortunate to have a proper internet connection. They are not able to perform well in their studies because they are unable to join in the studies. So it's being also stated by the 17 years old SPM student that he's feeling demotivated because of this such issues. Whereas for myself, honestly, to speak personally, I feel demotivated as well because I'm sitting at home and I'm using my own mobile phone. So if you ask any of the students, are they actually paying attention to their class with the surroundings in their house, with the kids? For those that are having siblings, there'll be kids making some huge noises. So it's really causing some issues for us to pay attention. And then other than that, I would say, like, for some students that are actually close contact with the coronavirus, or some of them are actually a patient of the virus, and they're feeling distressed because they couldn't get a proper health information. And other than that, they're also having a lack of trust in the medical facilities. But fortunately, right now, there's been some of the vaccines that's been provided. So previously, when the pandemic was still on a tight condition, so the students were still worried whether how long the pandemic is going to last long, whether it's going to be in a 5 years, or is it really going to be finishing by this year itself. And for most of us, I had a belief that it was going to end by last year, December itself, but it's been prolonged for 1 year. And for me, if you ask me now, I would say we have no idea for how long it's going to last long. So which is quite disfortunate as well. So just like Mr. Bala mentioned before, for the students that are actually starting diploma, like last year, for diploma or degree, okay, for let's say in a diploma, because they're just starting their career. So they would choose most of the students studying in the hotel management department. So for those type of students, by seeing such news going on, closure of majority hotels in Penang itself, so those students are speaking from their heart. I would say they're having a lack of motivation, and also they are having trust issues. Whether how are they going to cope up into their future, because they are unable to secure a proper position, and even though they are secured into a hotel line, but the payment of their wages are quite low compared to few years back. And lastly, I would say students that are unable to conduct a consultation with the lecturers by having a face-to-face, we're having trouble to get a proper assignment informations, because there's been a lacking of communication. I'm not directly pointing at the lecturer, but I'm pointing to the technology, to the Wi-Fi connections, to the internet connections, because the lecturer, they're actually giving 101% of their best. They are cope up to our situations, because sometimes the students, for the working students, they would be texting lecturers even at 10 or 10:30, which is way past the class time, but lecturers would still be patient to answer our questions. So kudos for them, huge respect. But however, for due to the lacking of communication, due to mobile and some internet connection, we are having some lacking in time. Like for example, if we text in a time where there's some internet down situation, then of course we'd have to wait like until the problem is solved. Like if you see recently, there was some communication problem happened into a famous mobile network. So those subscribers or the customers would have to wait until the issues are being solved. So let's say if those type of students are having submission within 2 or 3 hours, so they would having trouble to submit their assignment, and with such trouble is taking place, so they would have to answer to those that are connected, like for example SEGI. They have been connected to their foreign universities as well, namely Sunderland, or also Troy University and Greenwich. So the submission is directly into the United Kingdom's education system. So if we would have to submit into their portal, so we would have to have a strong connection, and we have to submit within the time frame itself. So with such internet connection, so there's going to cause a lot of trouble for us students and also for the institute, because they would have to answer to those authority. Yeah, so that is my take, and I'm speaking on behalf of students.
Yeah, very insightful, Henry. So you pointed out an important point earlier as well, right? Both the teaching staff as well as the students were making a lot of adjustments and coping up with time management and Wi-Fi connection. And yes, of course, both parties are doing their best, right? But during the initial stages, how were you coping with the adjustments that you had to make?
Just like Mr. Bala said also, that so on our previous educations, we have been studying in classes. So we are actually kind of used seeing lectures by conducting face-to-face. And then if there's any issues with our education, we would just straight away ask our lecturers or teachers. But then due to the pandemic, we would have to contact through our college. And for those students that aren't having a number of lecturers, so they would have to call someone, some of the lecturers that are having a contact, or they would have to directly face the higher principals of our college. So these are the type of issues that we face. And other than that, there are also type of internet issues. Mainly it's because of internet issues, and also because of congestion. Like for example, we couldn't find a better spot to do our studies. Like some of the students had to go out rather than sitting at home and studying. So some of the students had to step out of their house. They would have to go into a cafe after the MCO, after it was less restriction. So they would have to step out of the house, because there are some of the houses that are having babies, so they would have to not disturb them as well. So these are the type of issues we faced at the earlier stage of the pandemic.
Right. So that's absolutely right. Right. Initial stages, that was something that that's how you were coping. Right. Now that you've at least gone through almost a year, right, of the pandemic, and you've already got familiar with the teaching materials and how is classes conducted. How or what have you been doing differently, like among you and your peers, your student mates, right, your college mates, like what's the difference, the major difference that you can share with us?
The major difference I would say is for the students, they could actually brainstorm and they would actually figure out a group study. So I know even though there's some restriction going on that we shouldn't be in a group form, but we could maintain our social distancing. Like for example, we can take our digital library, or they could find a better spot so that they can work together. Like they could sit together, like 4 to 5 group members, and then they could join the online classes and they could perform. If there's any questions, they could ask their members, or if there's any questions, they could settle the inquiries with the lecturers. And another thing different is that we could actually talk to our lecturers, and we could, if they're okay with it, and also if they allow, we could actually perform a consultation by face to face, but with tight SOPs. So I don't think most of the students are actually talking to the lecturers on trying to have a face to face. So I would say that if they could talk out to the lecturers to have some sort of consultation, so it would be helpful for them rather than using telecommunication. But of course, the most important thing is to follow all the SOPs.
Right. I'm sure we can make the best out of what we have, right? And so far, the classes, have been going on smoothly. And you think, do you, in your opinion, I mean, just very quick summary, do you think that it has going on well for you?
For me, it's been sweet and sour because there are a few benefits from online classes. Because firstly, we could do multitasking. Like for example, if we are at office and then we are just finishing work, if there's a physical class, we would have to attend the class. And for those that are having to travel for a long period, they would be traveling for around, by the time class has already started, or even some of the students have to skip classes. But via online class, they could actually join the class just within a few clicks on their mobiles or laptop, and they're already in the class. They could get all the information they could have. So I would say there's the pros. Whereas from the disadvantage part, I would say it is less motivating because like some of the students, they would have to go to the classes while driving, which is less safe, I would say, because while driving, they would have to join the class and they would have to pay attention to both sides. So these are the type of changes that I'm making. Other than that, I would say it's been sweet and sour, I would say, because we are also able to manage our time according to our flexibility.
Right. Thanks for sharing, Henry. I have my next question is for Mr. Steven, right? I'm sure you've met a lot of students being a lecturer yourself. So as a counselor, can you describe a recent experience you personally had with the student? What was their experience like?
Okay, there are many. I think I have to borrow what Henry has said. Even I have listed down many issues that have been shared by my students. And one of the first in my list is the motivation. And this is what Henry also have said. I think the motivation of the students has decreased a lot. Even those students are those days, during the physical setting, they're doing very well. But nowadays, I can see the motivation level is really, really, really lacking. Yeah, I really can see the differences on this aspect, and even good students. Okay, so these are the main reason. I think the main thing that the students who used to come and talk to me, or they tell me, sir, how to increase my motivation and something like that, which is sometimes certain things are beyond my ability to help them, because sometimes they have to motivate themselves. Although, I can ask them to where to get water, and then it is a duty to go and drink the water, something like that. Yeah. So mainly motivation, and secondly, I think even this one also Henry has highlighted it, the connectivity, yeah, the internet issue, the Wi-Fi issue. Even I'm having a student from China. China is very famous for the 5G, but even the students from that country also complaining about this. And because of so-called the connectivity issue or the connection issue or the Wi-Fi issue, and then the remote learning, sometimes the children cannot access to the platform that we are using to teach, like we are using a Microsoft Teams to teach, but the student cannot access it, or suddenly a lagging issue, the student couldn't hear us, or whenever like we are asking question, they cannot connect or switch on their microphone to talk to us, and the lecturer will be assumed that they are lazy or they are simply giving a reason or something like that. So all these things, like the emotional issue that faced by lecturer because the students' involvement is lacking, and the students and certain students also like they dislike to talk via online. So all these things cause them like they feel like distressed because of that. So mainly again, back to your question, motivation level is really decreased. And another thing is about the internet connection, the Wi-Fi connection. Other than that, I would say that the lockdown itself, as I said, that staying at home is quite boring because they have to see the same face again and again. Really, I think this is the third major issue faced by students. The same faces, that is for parents or siblings. And one thing that we have to know, the family is emotion unit. Always we call it the family is emotion unit. And all the members of the families are emotionally connected. So emotion of one person, like parents' emotion or the siblings' emotion, will be displaced towards the each other. So as such, like even one person having a smooth feeling, a nicer feeling, a better feeling, when other person in the family are probably having some issues, they will be passed down that so-called the negativity or the negative feelings to other people. And another thing that we have to know that, I mean, the students and the complaint from students are about they can't meet their peers or they cannot meet the classmates. We have to know that human beings are social animal. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychology, have said human beings are social animal. So they have to socialize. Even like for me, probably that is a later question, but let me to highlight now. I like to see students, and students also like to see lecturers physically. Like Keisha, if you still remember those days, I like to see all of you. You always will come with a packet of food and then drinks to the classroom, and always walking around with the food. Something, all these things, like something like nice things that we see, and we can see all these things when there is no lockdown or something. And like students also physically, if they're having any issue, any question when we are lecturing, immediately they can come and ask. Or immediately after the lecture's over, they can come to our class or our office, and then they can come discuss with us. And this is another issue. And when come to exam, like Mr. Bala said just now, they have to submit the assignment and exams all on time via online. So these are the issues, the exam, say for example, the exam time is 2 hours. Same physical setting also they given 2 hours. And normal setting, online setting also they given 2 hours, but extra 1 hour, extra 1 hour for the technical methods. But you see, normally whenever in exam, everyone, what we will be doing is, will be take up, like given like 2 hours, we'll be taking up around 2 hours to complete the question. If given more time, then we'll feel better. I mean, for a good student mainly. So here the case where they have to really be rushed, they really have to rush, and then by the time that they complete all the question, like say for example, the exam time is 2 to 4. By the time they complete all the exam question is only 3:45, and then they have to conclude everything. They have to ready to upload in the system. If not, the system will close. So you see, the stress level will be getting higher, really, really high. I can feel it actually. Yeah. So some of the students cannot submit within the time, and then as such, they have to call the lecturer, they have to call the IT department, they have to call the exam department. These are the issues that are being faced by students nowadays. And during the medical assignment submission also, Say, for example, the what do you call the size issue, size of the assignments, megabytes or gigabytes. So the system has some capacity, probably like example 30 meg, but the assignment will go up to maybe 35 because they want to put a lot of figures and pictures and all this thing. Whenever like they're having this kind of issue, they can't upload it. So when they can't upload it, and during last minute they're trying to upload it, they have some technical issues, like example, like Calculator doesn't work, or they cannot access the file, or maybe some virus attack, or many other issues, technical issues, and then because of size issues, then they like end up another trouble then. Probably sometimes the lecturer will be say that you have to follow the deadline and all this thing, but certain students really couldn't follow it. So again, this is causing another level of, bringing them, the stress level is higher. So basically, these are the issues that are being shared by students. And another thing is, one more important thing, I'd like to relate this to this family life cycle issue. Sorry, family life cycle model, like what you call founder is the Cartel and McGoldrick. They say that this is the age for the students, like 18 to 25 or something like that. You know, and this is the time the leaving home. They call it. This is the cycle where we're calling leaving home. Leaving home means financially they become independent. At the same time, they are trying to get some kind of attachment or emotional aspects. I think I don't have to explain in detail about what kind of emotional aspects they need to have it at this age. You know, friends, opposite sex, they need to find a girlfriend or boyfriend or more friends. So all these things are because the lockdown things have been limited. So as such, students complain also on these aspects are quite a lot too. Yeah, maybe they directly won't express it out, they feel shy, but the feelings indirectly they will be express it to me whenever come to the time where they can talk to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, referring to what Mr. Sivan is saying, that's a whole lot of emotions that they're dealing with, right? From every angle, many aspects. So I have a question for Mr. Bala, right? Where do these students refer themselves, right, when they are facing these mental health problems?
All right, number one, I think being college students and university students, I think most of the colleges will have their own counselors or persons for them to go and student support in the college and university itself. They can go there and talk to them. Or otherwise, if they can get someone, some family people or friends who they can talk to, they'll be good. Now, otherwise, next they can go into some NGOs where NGOs like Befrienders, you can call them. There's a hotline, so you can call. And there's some other organizations where they have hotlines where you can call and talk to them. Even EWRF, okay, we have counseling, free counseling, for the students to come in and talk. Now, or you can even Google up and check how to deal with your depression. How do you deal with this? I mean, just like anything else, you find information about all of your subjects or not. You can also find on internet how to deal with this. Or if you think you have got enough money, go to private centers. There are private centers. One of them I work in. So there are quite a number of private counseling centers or psychological centers where you guys can go and get help. Yeah. Yes. Hello. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Hello, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, thanks, Mr. Bala, for sharing that. Right, we, just based on what you said, we actually are receiving quite a number of questions. We will come to the questions from Facebook and Zoom by our audience later. I would also ask a follow-up for you, Mr. Bala. What would you advise a student, right, if they are dealing, a student who is going through mental health? What is the best coping mechanism?
Okay. Now, I mean, you must understand each student is different in the way of coping with their stress. Each one is different because depending upon their experience, their life experiences, their emotional level of understanding. So each one is different. So I would tell them, I mean, even trying to deal with, apart from going to counselors or not, you need to understand, yes, you're going through some emotional issues. You need to accept the fact that you are going through. Just accepting it. Yes, I am going through it. Now, the next step is I need to go and look out for help. I can't deal with it. It is affecting me. It is not really, it's not going to be good for me. I need to find a way how to deal with this. So number one, it's really good for you to go out and look for help. Now, apart from this, you must understand and see, I think you would have heard about lots of people telling you, go and do some exercise. Yeah, these are basic things. A lot of exercise will help you to deal with your stress, which means when you do exercise, physical exercise will release endorphins in your brain that makes you feel good. You kind of relax a little bit. So that should be good. If you can find some way you can do some meditation to calm your mind down, yes, that's also good. Now, so teach yourself relaxation. Again, go into some internet and look for how do you do relaxation. These are all tips for students to do things by themselves. Now, get connected with friends. If you have not done before, start connecting with friends. Call them up, talk to them. Now, the other one is, it can be monotonous doing your online studies. So take short breaks every now and then. Go and do something different. Go and dig some garden, dig some plants, do some planting. Something else, okay? Maybe even playing some video games can also relax you and you come back to that. So all these can be helpful for you. Now, I would also, what I'll do is when I see students like this, I will ask them to, now take whatever you're going through, instead of looking at it, it's so challenging for you, it's so terrible. Why don't you look and see, what do I learn from this? This is very important. And this is cognitive processing, rephrasing. I went through a lot of tough time. Did I learn something from it? Now, because I've gone through this, I've experienced this emotion. Am I going to do something else? What am I going to learn? How am I going to cope with this? So I'm really talking about coping skills. So usually when we go through some problems, yes, one part of it is problem. If you turn it around and see what are you learning from this problem, and how can you use these skills to deal with later problems that's going to come in your life. So you need some amount of looking, reflecting, and say, am I learning from this? You really look at it, see any problem, one side of it is problem, the other side is you might learn something from that problem, going through that experience in life. So I would ask students to find different coping skills to deal with their emotional problem. So of course, it's going to be difficult. You might need some counselors or someone to help you to look through this, to help you to search for these coping skills. Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant, Mr. Bala. I think it's all about perspective, right? How we look at things, right? I think we have more time at home, and there are things that we can do even in the vicinity of our own home, right? Great. So my next question is for Mr. Tony, right? During the pandemic, right, what are the actions taken by the institution, right, to deliver the education system to the students, and what are the control measures taken to ensure that the quality of the education maintains?
All right. So from our side here, of course, since it's a pandemic, so everyone cannot go out, then the only way to meet with each other, of course, there's only one thing, which is through e-learning, or what we are using right now, like Zoom. Okay. And the school also constantly, they are using like Google Classroom, and some of them are using like Microsoft Teams. That's the only way we can do. So there's no other way. So of course, instead of through this e-learning, okay, learn online, we also encourage these teachers, okay, to utilize the online tools. So I can give an example, like the very popular platform called Kahoot, okay, Wakelet, or Google Classroom. All these tools are actually to help students, instead of sitting in front of the computer and just listen to the teacher and keep on talking. They can have some interactive sections as well. The teachers can play some games, okay, give some quizzes, and students can actually answer them, and they have some what we call that the gamification, something the features. So to keep on to let the student to have motivated to come to the online class. So we cannot meet with each other. We cannot see the student expression that this is the only way to do, at least to make the students smile while they are learning, right? So the next point that I want to point out is that especially for those students who are facing the technical issue, internet issue, I do saw some teachers who actually take the initiative whereby they actually use their own pocket money and print out the hard copy notes and pass to the student. Really, I highly respect to these teachers. They take this initiative to do so, and with their own pocket money, they cannot claim sometimes. So to make sure the student to keep up, instead of just let it be, the student, the teachers also, how to say, in SEGI, we also let these teachers to, how to say, we give them a special training, okay, for teachers especially, on how to utilize these online tools. And I'm lucky, I'm also one of the trainer as well to train these teachers. So previously, I think three or 4 months ago, so I have managed to train in SEGI here to the lecturers especially to train on these online tools and also share the tips how to engage with students using this online platform. So the easiest way to, this one I can share with everybody, is the easiest way to interact with students while we are online is ask them to constantly type at the chat box. That's the easiest way. Just like, okay, do you agree with me? If you agree, just type 1 at the below. So they can type. So once the students start typing, then the conversation will keep on going. So students nowadays are quite shy. They don't like to open their webcam. They cannot see them. So at least let them type something. All right. So next thing is I would like to share the control measure by the institution is that we do constantly get feedback from the students. All right. So during my previous training, I also asked the teachers every after the classes, make a short summary of what you have teach today. All right. And also get the student feedback, and not to forget also create a simple quiz using these online tools. Okay. And at least you can know, is the student understand or not? Are they keeping up? If they are like the marks is quite low, then you at least you know who you should focus more on and what you need to do next, right? So these are the feedback system that we have asking the teachers to do. And also, of course, we have social messaging platform. I believe everybody have WhatsApp, everybody have Telegram, some of them have WeChat. Create a groups where you can communicate with the students and of course with the teachers. So if you have any questions, just post your question to the group. And I personally also like to use a platform called Facebook group. All right, this one is a social media platform. I personally also create this platform using this Facebook group, whereby to engage with the students to share the tips, okay, or the tricks how to study well. And I also create a group for the SPM students as well. Previously, 3 months ago, whereby I share, I create a webinar. I invite the speakers in, okay, the professional speakers, to share how to answer the question during your SPM through this Facebook group alone. And it's very, very, very happening inside the group. All right. So what I want to summarize is that, during this pandemic, I believe everybody facing the issue. So we have to keep up and learn new things. Okay, keep on learning, and so that we will not fall behind, and then at least we get some information, right? Okay, that's what I want to share.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. I'm glad to to hear that the university itself is putting all these measures, and I think you would agree, right? These methods or these activities that you are conducting right now with the adjustments, it promotes more creativity among students and also the teaching staffs, right?
Yes, 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 exactly. In order to make the student happy, motivating to attend the class, a lot of things we have to do. We are no more traditionally method.
Right. And so far, are you enjoying it?
Yeah, of course.
That's great. I'm sure the students are too. All right. So we do have a couple of questions that are coming in from Facebook as well as our Zoom meeting. So let me just pick up a few questions from Facebook. How do I create a conducive environment? So as a student, right, for students, maybe I shall address this question to Mr. Sivan.
Okay, conducive environment. One thing that you see, we are already going through this pandemic for 1 year. So previously we are calling it as we have to adapt to the new norm. I think nowadays we don't have to call or cannot address this as a new norm. It is become a norm. It is a new norm. It is a norm. Sorry, you see, I'm using a new norm again. It's become a norm. Okay, so to adapt to it, how? They have to have they have to find a group of students or group of peers who they can work well with. They can have a more like a meeting with them, either like a Facebook meeting or any platform meeting. These are the one of the way. And then another thing is the conducive environment is of course a home environment. We're not calling about environment. I like to focus on three aspects: bio, psycho, social. Bio mean biological. Of course, they have to make sure they're having a good food and a healthy food, nutritional food. Another one is psychological. They have to have a make sure they have to have a good friends. At the same time, these are the time actually students or everyone have to get contact with the forgotten friends, our relative or family members. They have to find out that we are calling it the eco map. Whenever you're calling the eco map, you have to see who are the people some of can influence our life. So here we can find out them and then we can call them and mingle up with them. And these are the things. Another one is socializing. As I said, that the more socialized, try to more socialize. Find a venue. You have to think creatively. Like example, like still they can do many things, online, via online. And they have to try to do all these things. So focusing on bio, psycho, and social, and finding out the new friends, especially those can work well with them. So with that, they can probably can make a conducive environment. At the same time, at home, you see everything start from home. What are the changes they can bring in the home so everyone can feel happy in the home? Because the more time they're going to spend, the more time they're spending at home, as such, the environment in the home itself must conducive. So probably they can talk to the parents and all and family members how to create a healthy environment at home itself. I think that is very important. Everything starts from home, and after that, second thing is collaboration with the students, fellow peers, and all. And another thing is good what you call communication with the educators or the lecturers, in other words. Yeah. So this is also very important. Lectures are always there. Only thing is the students are not communicating. They have to use this kind of chance to communicate so that a conducive environment can be created. Yeah.
Right, totally agree with you, Mr. Sivan. Right? Okay, so our next question, right, from Facebook, perhaps Mr. Bala can address this. If I can't find a counselor, how can I help myself? I know you have covered this earlier. Maybe you just want to summarize a little bit.
Yeah. Can. Okay. If you can't find a counselor, number one, as I said earlier, you need to identify your problem. What is your problem? What are you worried about? What is the actual issue? Either you can't focus on the studies, or it's too difficult for you, or it's too much, too overwhelming for you. Or what is your emotion there? You're very upset about it. So you need to go down, reflect, and see what is the emotional thing that's troubling you. Identify it, and then start working from there if you don't have a counselor. Either then you can know, okay, this is my feeling. You want to Google up and say, this is how I feel and how to deal with this. So this is one of the easiest methods to check, to do your own check and see. I think sometimes you can feel, what is it bothering you? You can ask yourself, is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it uncertainty? Is it overwhelming? Is it too stressful? Now understand the feeling inside you. Acknowledge the fact, then start moving. This is your own self-help way of dealing with it. It'd be really good if you can see someone and talk to someone. Sometimes talking to a friend, expressing how you feel, you might get some cues to how to deal with your problem. Okay?
Right. To add on as well, right? Earlier you did mention about trying to keep ourselves fit and
Sure.
and of course finding new hobby, right? I think this is the time
Sure.
that we can actually come up with or try to explore new hobbies that probably can
No,
be.
why I didn't say that, because I think many people would have told people, okay, go for exercise, go for hobby, go for all that is kind of common stuff. So that's why I said I kind of look into yourself. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Kesha, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bala. Okay, next question. We have someone who posted this question on Zoom. The government's SOP in work have made workload increase. That's interesting. Okay, by the time we finish work, they feel burnout, which will lead them to procrastination in their studies. So, what's the solution to this?
Now, can I answer that? Okay.
Sure.
Now, what I'll say is now, yeah, we work with corporate companies where we deal with a lot of anxieties related to these pandemic times now. Yes, I agree with you. The workload is going to be heavy now. I think, number one, you need to understand the work is heavy. If you cannot manage it, you need to go and amicably talk to the bosses and say, this is too much work. So what I'll recommend people to do is explain to the boss in a very nice way, say, hey boss, I can do only 5 files a day. Each file will take 2 hours. So 5 files will 10 hours. That's all I can do. Maybe if you want me to do more, can you please teach me how to do more files? So if you put it in a very objective manner to make them understand you are overloaded, or ask them, I will do this extra. Are you willing to pay? Because when I go back home, I need my free time. So you need to have a very good communication with your bosses to let them, without going into a fight. So let them know, make them understand you have a difficulty in this work, and tell them, if you give me too much, I will be overstressed, and that will put me into hospital, and that will be more problem for you because I won't be able to do the work. So I think you need to put very clearly this message to your bosses and say, yeah, I am not able to take. If the boss asks you, if you can do only 5, maybe you want to take 6, that's it, but you cannot take 8. So let the boss know, and you can't. Once you have done this, then, yeah, we have dealt with some of the people in the office, and the bosses have reduced the amount of work to them. So it's about your interpersonal skills, how you manage this, manage this issue. It is all about how you manage your work. You cannot overload and then you come back and do studies, which is not going to be possible for you. Yeah. I think you need some amount of interpersonal skills, be able to communicate this issue to your bosses in the best way.
Right. I know we are.
Can I just add on something?
Yes, sure, Mr. Sivan.
Yeah, I think another thing is I'm echoing what Mr. Bala said. I think another thing is the time management. It's really, really very important. Something that you can do today, you do it today. Procrastination is always should be causing some problems. Something that you can do it today, just do it today. Don't do it tomorrow. Or something that you can do it earlier, do it earlier. Don't wait for tomorrow. Another thing is one more thing that they can take an approach on this is we are calling it delayed gratification. Delayed gratification means difficult tasks you do earlier. Anything that difficult tasks do it earlier. It will take up more time and then will take up more energy to spend on. Do it earlier. The easier one, do it later. You see, whenever we're eating a food, this is, I'm just giving an analogy, getting a food. Something that we dislike much, the mom always will say, you must finish up everything on a plate. Okay, something that we dislike, vegetable normally, for the kids, they will eat first, something they like most, they will be eating later. Like, for example, fried prawn or fried chicken or fried egg, they'll be eating later, because that is what we are, I'm explaining based on delayed gratification. Yeah, so the difficult one, do it faster, the simpler one, do it earlier. It is really can allow you to what do you call, manage your stress level. Yeah, probably they can take up this kind of measures too. Yeah.
Right, that's really good, Mr. Sivan. I think now we have to eat our vegetables first, right? Okay, so the another question that we have, this came from Facebook. Some parents are not allowing kids to go out at all, so which makes things worse. Now, this person is asking if we have any of the speakers have any tips.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you must understand why the parents are not allowing this person to go. Probably you must understand from the parents' point of view, they are talking about safety. Probably it's about safety. And I think if you are, big enough and you can explain to them, I will go out, but I will be careful. I will remain safe. So I will follow all these SOPs. And if that's not going to be a problem, if you can convince the parents, I cannot blame the parents completely, because I think they're thinking of safety, which means like, yeah, I don't want my son, my daughter to get infected by this COVID-19. So I don't want them to get involved. Or I don't want the police to catch this person. So I think there are a lot of security concerns here for the child to go out. So you must understand it. And then if you can convince them, yes, I will follow, I will wear my mask, I will use this sanitizer in my hands, and I'll come back. I think that should help. So we cannot go and try to advise the parents, because you must understand from the parents' point of view. I think it's a lot to do with safety and security.
Right, absolutely. Right, parents are also dealing with the situation and trying to keep everyone safe, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone wants to add anything to that?
Yeah, another thing is that the kids, like, say, for example, parents are giving them chance to go out, and then they, like Mr. Bala said, they have to promise to the parents. They're saying that they will follow the SOPs. Most importantly, they must keep the promise, because CCTVs are
yes, you're right.
CCTVs are everywhere now. Many people can come and complain to your parents. I saw your son, or I saw your daughter here and there, and all kind of things. So to win the trust. So the next day, the parents allowing the child to go. So the child must keep the promise.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good reminder to all of us. Okay. So we have one last question that we will address for today. So what the speakers, all of you, what is your point of view on Zoom fatigue? I'm sure we've heard of this Zoom fatigue term. Yeah. So this is for both lecturers and students.
Yeah, Mr. Sivan?
Maybe Mr. Bala can start first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Zoom fatigue is anything that you do for a long time and that's not motivating you, that's making you uncomfortable, can cause some amount of fatigue, because it is not motivating you. It's not something that you enjoy. So it is going to be anything else. Anything that you do again and again that does not motivate you, but you're doing it because you have to do it. So it will cost you some amount of fatigue, yes. Yes, I think students, you got no choice. You have to go in one class after another class, and okay, you're doing that. Now, I would really ask you guys to take a break, short break. Come out from that room, come out from that screen, watching the screen. Go out and do something. Run around, jog, skip, or listen to music, or something. Go and make coffee, a drink. This is a shortcut, like small methods you can do to deal with this Zoom fatigue, Now, or if you can, is there something that you can record this and play this back later? Maybe your classes, if you can record it, ask someone to record it, And then when you take a time break and come back again and listen to this. So this is another method of, dealing with this fatigue. Take breaks, take a lot of breaks. Yeah. You can even bring a glass of coffee in front of this and then see and then sip the coffee, taste the coffee, like there's something else distracting you from completely focusing on the screen.
We could literally do anything actually.
Yeah. And even listening to music can be much having a lesser effect. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right. Maybe we get the students' perspective, right? Henry,
Yeah,
do you
please.
want to share?
Yes. Yes, Henry.
Okay, so from my point of view, I would actually say the same thing, just like Mr. Bala has said. He's actually speaking on behalf of all of us, to be honest, because he's answering all of them. It's the exact same thing. Just take some time, relax for a
What
while.
works for you, Henry? What do you think works best when you are experiencing Zoom fatigue?
Zoom fatigue, I would say I will just take 5, or because actually I will just inform the lecturer, like can we take 5 or can we take 3 minutes, because 5 may be long for some lecturers, because some of the lecturers would try to finish up the classes as soon as possible. And then other than that, we could actually, the most basic thing is communication. We just gotta inform the lecturers, and we have to let them know if we are actually facing these difficulties, if the class is getting quite bored, so that lecturer would know, okay, a way to keep them fun, to keep them engaged in the class.
Right, thanks, Henry.
Like playing games with lecturers. There are some of my lecturers that are actually active in classes. They would actually conduct some games, so to ensure that students are engaged. So I guess it's a good effort by the lecturer.
Great. And Mr. Tony, what would you advise the teaching staffs?
Yeah. So from a lecturer's point of view, like what Mr. Bala said, we take a break. But during this, live session is sometimes quite tough to take a break, especially for lecturers. You can't suddenly missing from the screen. So what do I advise, to those lecturers is that you can create some quizzes, do some quiz during the live session. So when you post up the quizzes, you can take some rest at the behind, drink some coffee and enjoy. And for students, will be quite easy. For students, it's always you just mute your mic, stop the video, and you can relax. Always like that. Okay. So of course, don't especially lecturers, because we understand that lecturers is sometimes we have to conduct class for full days. They are very, very tiring. So time management is one of the things to consider as well for lecturers, how to allocate your time. You don't need to always go for live classes, but sometimes use the recorded version will help as well. This is what I want to share.
Right.
Yeah. I want to add on something. Yeah.
Sure.
Now, I discourage boys from going out and smoke, and that's taking off fatigue. Yeah, I mean, this is quite common. Yes. But yeah, if you can do something else, I would advise you. Yes, but it's so common for students to just go out and they smoke and come back. But again, I mean, that's what we talked about earlier. Students can get involved in substance abuse. So this, I will call cigarette smoking, it's also substance abuse. Yes, it can be fun, but I think you look at the long term of it, you get into addiction, then you fall out another problem. So try not to, please.
That's not the right solution, definitely.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So Mr. Sivan, I'm sure you've experienced Zoom fatigue.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Bala and Mr. Tony have addressed it. And another thing is that I like to highlight is must have a good sleep. A good sleep is important because you know that the screen time is going to be longer, 3-4 hours or 4-5 hours in a day. As such, you have to have enough energy in your body and good sleep. And then, of course, good food, which can give you a good energy, is really, really very important. Yeah, and then as Mr. Bala earlier said that we need to have exercise, or maybe you can do yoga or exercise on other things, which can release a good hormone in our body, that is endorphins, instead of going for a morphine or ganja outside, we can ask the body itself to release it by doing exercise or eating a good food and good sleep. That's a good way. And another thing that probably I can say it, attach with nature. So we are now detaching with nature all the time. Students or even adults also all the time engage with the devices, handphones or something like that, WhatsApp and all this thing. So it is the best time for us to get back to nature, attach with nature. Nature have a lot of healing power. One of the easiest way to attach with nature, since we cannot travel, we cannot go to beach, you cannot get to recreational park, with jungle, something like that. Gardening is the best, I would say that. Try to do, even if you are living in flats or condominium anyway, find a way, creative way. Go to Google, go to Mr. Google or Auntie Google and YouTube and find a way, creative way, how to do gardening at home with the limited places. And it is the best therapy, I would say that. So all these things will be helpful to get rid of the so-called Zoom fatigue.
Right. If you can't go out, why not bring the jungle to our own home, right? Create our own Zen space.
Very
Right?
true. Very true.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So great questions. Thank you so much for all of that. I think we'll go around the table right now and just ask, final advice from our panelists today. Maybe we can start with Mr. Tony.
Okay, so advice to all the students is that we are in a new norm right now. So we can meet with each other. So be proactive to ask questions and always take initiative to seek for help, right? So don't wait for the help to come for you. You seek for help, right? Over to you.
Perhaps Henry, would you like to share?
Sure. So, as a student, I would say that there are stronger times ahead of us. So we just gotta keep the seatbelt on. Just, I would say, even though there's a bad ride, but sit along. There's gonna be just like the saying goes, there's a light at the end of the dark tunnel. So just wait for the light, and for sure things gonna get right. Until then, just sit down, and if you need any help, make sure to communicate, because communication is the key. Yep.
That's right. Okay, Mr. Bala?
Yeah, I would say again, acknowledge the emotions that you're going through. Try to search and say, this is what I'm going through, understand it, and look for a way how to deal with it. And the other thing I would tell, from a psychological point, try to look at the problems you go through, try to find, is there a learning point behind it? And learn from it, rather than taking it completely negative and making it so difficult for you to digest it. See what can you learn from this experience. Like, and I think we talked about tsunami last time. So a lot of times the tsunami happened and there's a lot of changes people went through, and they got prepared a lot of times, and they made a lot of changes in their life. So likewise, I think this pandemic can also be a lesson for us to get ourselves prepared. Who knows, there can be another bigger coronavirus coming that we might have to learn how to get adapted. So learn from these experiences. All right, okay. I don't know. Anybody wants to know about gardening, please call and check. I got lots of tips to do gardening. I'm going to do a lot of gardening. Come and see me.
That is so nice of you. I'm going to talk to you, Mr. Bala.
Okay.
So Mr. Steven, your final advice.
Okay. The new norms, we have to accept it as a norm after this. Yeah. We wouldn't know tomorrow. It's very uncertain. Like Mr. Bala said, maybe another big corona may come up. Yeah. So we have to anticipate all these things. As such, we have to learn to adapt to the new norms and make it as a norm. Probably in future also online classes probably will be there forever. Wouldn't know. But many things are very uncertain. And the time whenever like you need help, please go and seek for the help. Don't keep it to yourself. Especially like sometimes you have to keep it yourself. The stress will become depression, and after that maybe you're going to tend to become suicidal or something like that. To avoid all these things, you must have a good friends, must communicate with them, must have a good relationship with family members. And whenever you feel like you want to talk to someone else, a neutral person, find a counselor, psychologist, or anyone. we must do that. Oh, there are a lot of NGOs like Befriended, even EWRF and many other NGOs are giving free counseling services to everyone. You just can, what you have to do is just reach them. Yeah, that is my advice to all of you.
Right. Thank you so much. These are great advice from our panelists. It was really insightful, and I think now we actually have that little bit more knowledge and coping mechanism, right? And we can all use a little bit of reminder from time to time. As much as we need to maintain our physical health, I think we need to pay much more attention to our mental health for a quality life. Once again, thank you, our panelists, and also to all our participants for joining us. I think that's about it for tonight. Until next time, everyone, do stay safe and take care.
Thank you, Gesha.